Hey guys, Spud here, as always, and today we're taking a look at how to employ the newly added AGM-154A JSOW, or Joint Standoff Weapon, to the arsenal of the F-15E Strike Eagle. Now, we have a Chinese Special Forces team have landed on Pagan Island here in the Marianas and set up an HQ-7 SAM site that we have to attack from a standoff distance to then allow friendly forces to retake the island. And with our Pacific theme today, I figured a beautiful Republic of Singapore Air Force F-15SG skin would fit our setting perfectly. So let's hop in and get started, guys. Alright guys, welcome back to the office of the F-15E Strike Eagle, or I suppose in our case today an F-15SG Strike Eagle, that is. And we'll hop right on into our discussion of the employment of the new AGM-154A JSOW, or Joint Standoff Weapon. As we move through today's tutorial video, guys, please do keep in mind that the JSOW is just another GPS INS guided weapon, and thus the setup and employment of this weapon is nearly identical to all the other flavors of JDAMs we had previously available to us in the F-15E. So in the interest of keeping this video as short and simple as possible, I'm not going to rehash anything that I already went over in my previous two JDAM employment and setup tutorial videos. So if anything we talk about in today's video is confusing or you're not understanding the concepts, definitely check out those two previous videos that will be pinned in the comments section down below. So let's go ahead and start off by hopping over to the mission editor and talking about some pros and cons of hanging JSOWs off the hardpoints of your F-15E Strike Eagle. Alright guys, let's take a look at the AGM-154A JSOW on our F-15E Strike Eagle from more of a mission planner and mission maker's perspective. Because of the rather blocky and chunky size of the AGM-154, it makes carriage of this weapon on the F-15E a little bit awkward. We're unable to carry the weapon on any of the other CFT stations other than the very middle, and we can only carry a single weapon on each wing station on the aircraft and only a single weapon on the centerline pylon. And while we can carry more JSOWs than are usually seen on the FA-18C Hornet and the F-16C Viper, it does limit our fuel carrying capacity. So if we did want to, say, carry some external fuel tanks on our F-15E here, we would be limited to having only 3 AGM-154 JSOWs, whereas an F-16C pilot or an FA-18C pilot is going to be able to carry 4 of these weapons while still retaining the ability to carry as much external fuel as they need to. And this is one of the reasons why we don't necessarily see AGM-154 JSOWs in use on F-15s in real life all that often. It's much more common to, say, see JSOWs loaded onto Republic of Singapore Air Force F-16s than it is on their F-15SG Strike Eagles. Same thing for USAF F-15Es and Royal Saudi Air Force F-15Ss and SAs, whereas they'd rather put those JSOWs on their Eurofighters or Tornadoes. So something interesting to note here, guys, and it is a definite trade-off to get that first real standoff weapon available to us in the F-15E and have to trade off a bunch of gas, because of course gas left behind you at home is not there to help you out once you're in combat. So let's head back to the cockpit and talk about how to actually drop these suckers. Alright guys, now that we're back in the cockpit, let's go ahead and start off by setting up all of our switches to get ready to employ our JSOWs. We'll go ahead and select steer point 2, which is our target area over at Pagan Island, where that Chinese HQ-7 site is located. We'll select our air-to-ground master mode, master arm to arm. We'll check our emitters. We'll make sure our external lights are doused, our radars are on and standby. We've got plenty of fuel, well above Joker fuel, and our Wizzo in the backseat will make sure that our countermeasures as well as our ECM systems are ready to rock and roll. So let's go ahead and start flying out towards our target area. and we'll turn on the autopilot to relieve some of our pilot workload as well. Alright, on my left MPD, I'm going to go ahead and set up the PAX programs for the release of our JSOWs. On menu 1, I'm going to go to the armament page and the air-to-ground submenu. For program 1, I'm going to select 4 of our AGM-154A JSOWs. For the delivery method, I'm going to go with direct, step for the release method, and nose and tail for the fusing options. For program 2, I'm going to select the remaining AGM-154A JSOW on our centerline station, and I'll repeat the same options. What we have set up here is for program 1, we're going to drop 4 JSOWs on 4 different pre-programmed missions that we set up in the mission editor. One of those missions is for the HQ-7 search and track radar, whereas the other 3 are for HQ-7 launchers. And we're going to keep 1 JSOW in reserve in case our first volley of weapons does not destroy the search and track radar. We definitely want to get a hard kill on that search radar before we have friendly forces try to retake Pagan Island. Moving over to our right MPD, we'll go ahead and go to menu 2 and to the Smart Weapons page. We next have to switch over to CC memory mode for our smart weapons, so that way we can access the pre-programmed missions that we set up in the mission editor. We have the first AGM-154A selected, and we have set 1 mission 1, the search track radar mission. We'll hit mission transfer to transfer that mission to that particular weapon. We'll hit next station and next mission for set 1 mission 2. Mission transfer to our second weapon, next station, next mission to mission 3, mission transfer, and now on to the next weapon. You can see that hitting next station has skipped over our last remaining AGM-154A JSOW on our left CFT as part of our program 1. This seems to be a little bit of a bug in the module at the moment, as ex-F-15E pilots and WISOs that I've talked to seem to not remember this being a potential bug or issue in the real aircraft. The workaround I've found here, guys, is to simply deselect one of the 154s on the program, and that will force the next station icon here over to that open weapon. Next mission over to our 4th pre-programmed mission set. Mission transfer, and boom, we now have all 4 of our AGM-154s set up and ready to rock and roll. Alright. Up on our HUD here, we can of course see the range bar that should be very familiar to all of you guys out there. We have our aircraft represented by the little caret up here, and we have the maximum range at which we can release our weapons, represented by this like horizontal dash here. Then we have our terminal guidance staple. This terminal guidance staple lets you know that when you release the weapon within this staple, the weapon will definitely conform to the terminal guidance parameters you've either set in the pre-programmed mission or set in the weapon memory mission you've created by transferring over a target from a targeting pod or any other sensor. Alright. As I'm sure you guys are all well aware of, when using JDAMs, and especially JSOWs that are nice big glide bombs, the faster and higher you are, the better the range and thus standoff distance you'll get out of the weapon. Very important when attacking a target like a SAM site like we are today. Now, even though the LANTIRN Targeting Pod isn't going to afford us much in the way of ability to use it for targets of opportunity with our very long-range JSOWs, we can still use it here as a method of finding if we have a clear line of sight to our target, which we currently do not. So we'll kind of bring our jet over to the right-hand side here, so that way they do not run into that mountain as they fly on in towards their target area. We can see we're currently in range, but we're just adjusting here to make sure that we have that clear line of sight to our target area over the Pagan Island airfield. And that's looking a lot better. We now have an ASL on our HUD. We're getting nice and high, nice and fast, of course. We are sucking down a lot of gas doing this, so we'll pull it back into full mill power, and we'll kind of level off. Still 40 nautical miles out, definitely still outside the range of the HQ-7 SAM. And 1, 2, 3, and 4. Weapons away. And while those weapons are flying out towards their target areas, we'll go ahead and turn on the autopilot here. Whoops. Kick the autopilot off, turn off steer mode nav, turn the autopilot back on, and we'll scroll over to Program 2 on our Smart Weapons page, hit Next Station, Next Mission, back to Set 1, Mission 1 for the Search Track Radar mission, and we'll transfer it over to our last AGM-154A JSOW, so that way we have that guy ready to go for a re-attack in case we get into a situation where that Search Track Radar is not hard killed by that first volley of JSOWs. So let's take a look at the F10 map here and see the progress of our weapons. And why don't we speed up the simulation here, make things go a little bit faster for us. And we'll go back to regular speed. See if we can find the aftmost JSOW. And we can see the other weapons flying in formation with it as they head on down towards their pre-programmed missions. And they should start to enter a slight maneuver here to get ready to drop their combined effects munitions bomblets. These bomblets have a shape charge with a frangible metal coating on the outside that will ignite upon explosion of the shape charge in order to create a nice incendiary effect on targets around it if the shape charge itself does not hit armor. And they should be bursting relatively shortly. And pop, there they go. And say la vie to my frame rate there. Alright, so looks like we got hard kills on all 4 of our target areas here. So that's pretty fantastic. So why don't we go ahead and head back to the cockpit of our aircraft. And now that we have definite hard kills on the search track radar, we can use our targeting pod to get a bead on that last surviving radar in order to actually get a hard kill on it. Alright guys, to set up for finding and then engaging a target of opportunity through a sensor like our targeting pod, we need to go ahead and swap over to weapon memory mode. We of course have our targeting pod all set up and ready to go, so we'll go ahead and bring the pod over towards Pagan Island Airfield here. We're definitely within the zone of engaging a target with our last remaining JSOW, but I'm not too worried about it at this point. We definitely need to find and try to get a target on that last remaining HQ-7 launcher. As you guys can see, this is a good example of why pre-planned missions for your JSOWs are kind of the way to go, because we do not have the ability to use the awesome standoff capabilities of our JSOW when we are using the LANTIRN Targeting Pod, as opposed to the Lightning Targeting Pod available in the F-16 and FA-18C. It looks like I've got a bit of a bead on him right there. Just can't quite tell if that's a launcher or just a vehicle. So we'll get a little bit closer here. We'll bring our altitude down a little bit. Yeah, that's starting to look like a launcher, so I think we'll go ahead and designate that point. And once we have a designation, we have a new option up in the top left here, transfer from the targeting pod. We'll transfer that over. Now we can see that we have a T-pod designation on that last JSOW, and we'll go ahead and pickle that bad guy off. We'll re-engage the autopilot. And we'll watch our last JSOW fly its way on down towards the target area. Speeding up time a little bit here for you guys, and here she goes. Don't know if that designation was going to be accurate enough for engaging this one little launcher from that far away with that low fidelity of a targeting pod. Oh, looks like we got pretty darn close there. And unfortunately, it looks like these bomblets just missed that guy. But in real life, that would definitely be at least a mission kill on that SAM launcher. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it was illuminating for you on how to use JSOWs in the F-15E Strike Eagle. If you liked the video, please leave it a like and a subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.